There are 31 nights till Halloween, which means these are the 31 nights to watch horror films. This is 31 Nights of Halloween.
You knew Jason was going to be on the list, and you can't honestly say he doesn't deserve to be on it. Friday the 13th, for me, is one of the greatest slasher films ever made. And Jason Voorhees, who didn't show up until the sequel, is easily one of the top 5 horror killers, villains, monsters, whatever you want to call him. He's an icon. I can say that I actually don't have a memory of actually watching Friday the 13th for the first time. I do remember being told about Jason. I found out about Freddy Krueger by myself. But someone else, maybe one of my uncles, told me to watch Friday the 13th. I remember being really intrigued by the first film more than anything. The director of the film, Sean S. Cunningham, said he was trying to cash in on the slasher movie craze that started with John Carpenter's Halloween. Cunningham said they were cheap, easy to make, and were making profits at the box office. Insert Victor Miller Ron Kurz, who drummed up a script in no time, and out came Friday the 13th. A film that honestly did not need to be titled Friday the 13th, but I get it. Halloween is a spooky holiday. Friday the 13th is a spooky holiday on the calendar, or a spooky day on the calendar. But it could have been called anything. 11 movies in its series catalog, 10 a part of the original, and 1 being a remake, and a television series with a similar name, but not sure if there's any relation to Camp Crystal Lake or Jason Voorhees. It used to be on the Sci-Fi Channel before I got home from middle school, so I never really got to watch it, but it looked like it had nothing to do with the original films. So what's Friday the 13th about? Well, a little mongoloid boy named Jason Voorhees drowns at Camp Crystal Lake because the counselors were making out instead of doing their job. Jason's mother, Mrs. Voorhees, sets out on a mission to get her own justice as she goes insane and starts murdering any camp counselor she can find, and trying to make sure that no one ever reopens Camp Crystal Lake ever again, or Camp Blood as it's now being called. Interesting premise, one you can actually sympathize with the antagonist. Unfortunately, the final girl survives by beheading Mrs. Voorhees, but that's not the end of the story because Jason somehow actually survived. That's right, he drowned however many years ago and somehow survived in a cocoon and managed to age probably right before Mrs. Voorhees was beheaded. No, we don't know actually at all what happened after the first film, technically with Jason. There are rumors online, obviously. Many people believe that Mrs. Voorhees, after the death of her son, her mongoloid son, decided to get into the occult and she was so distraught, she decided to get into the occult to try to resurrect her deceased son. But she was not successful. And theories are that right that night, she did another seance to try to bring her son to life, and it didn't work, or she thought it didn't work. So then she left. And then he managed to come back to life to watch her get beheaded and takes his revenge. I don't know, maybe he did drown, or maybe he didn't drown. Maybe he washed up somewhere else and didn't know where the hell he was because he is a mongoloid. So he decided to, eat berries or whatever he could find, animals, and live in the woods. And then somehow he saw his mother be beheaded that night, took her head to his little shack that he had built in the woods of Camp Crystal Lake, and is out for revenge, thinking that anybody who's there is going to hurt him. So he goes out of his way to hurt them before they hurt him like they hurt his mom. When it's all said and done, Jason has some of the best slasher kills in horror history, is a slasher icon thanks to all 11 of his films, 2 of which he's not in. He's not in part 1 because it's his mom. He's not in part 5 because they killed him off in part 4. One of the best films in the series, by the way, and decided to let some other jabroni EMS driver be the new Jason. Oh, and he barely is in Jason Goes to Hell. Jason has movies, toys, video games, etc., and has lasted over 40 years. So make sure you watch Friday the 13th, the sequels, the remake, Jason vs. Freddy, or the TV show this Halloween season, and definitely for 31 Nights of Halloween.